Now I'm just like so annoyed. I just like went on like a Matt rant.
Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, this is very. You got a Kush bomb in the house here.
I love it. I love it. People need to hear it.
Preach, sister.
Preach.
Go off, Queen.
Tell them.
Okay, well let's
rein it back in.
let's bring it back in. So
No, let's keep going.
let's keep going.
Public space travel. Public space travel. And so on and so on.
I can't help but believe that in the future we'll see throughout the world an increasing trend toward the next logical step. We'll achieve full communism.
Public space travel. Public space travel. And so on and so on.
Welcome to the Public Space Travel Podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to social, political critique, comedy, and a little education. Coming from an anti-hierarchy and oppression perspective, we aim for progressive, radical left solidarity with our brothers, sisters, trans, and non-binary folk of all stripes. Today, we're going to be talking about Google, drone strikes, artificial intelligence, and some disgruntled employees. If you want to join a conversation, send us an email at publicspacetravel@gmail.com or call us on the voicemail, and we'll put you on the show if you're not too obscene, at 208-502-1406. I am your co-host, Lazarus. With me today is Luci. Luci, what is my aura today?
Your aura is a bright golden shit color.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm also here with our other co-host, Marks. Marks, what are the files?
Why do you want to know?
Great answer. We've trained you well for our PsyOps. So today we'll be talking about Google, their employees, and their involvement with the Department of Defense, doing those artificial intelligence to help analyze them drone footage, to, how should I say, further improve their drone strikes and such.
Yes, and also the rapidly deteriorating sense of pride that we have in our community and our culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to get everybody up to speed, Project Maven was created by the Department of Defense, and it was in collaboration with several companies, one of them in particular, Google. And I mean, personally, it's just a race to death machines rather than a race to peace and peacemaking machines that help us. But anyway, Project Maven is tasked with using machine learning to identify vehicles and other objects in drone footage, taking that burden off those drone analysts, because there's just so much footage out there that literally they can't watch all of it, so they need this smart technology to analyze it for them. So,
yes. Plus the emotional distraught of each person who views the killings of innocent people all over the world. It's just getting too much on the HR department.
Yeah, we got to push it on the artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Make the machines do it.
So the initial goal was to provide the military with advanced computer vision, enabling the automated detection and identification of objects in as many as 38 categories captured by a drone's full-motion camera, according to the Pentagon. We're driving this information from a Gizmodo article back in March of 2018, but we have some more recent ones updating the situation. I really want to know, what are the 38 categories? That's a lot of categories.
That's a lot of categories. I imagine that some of them are like, does it like strawberries? Can it...
Elimination. That's the top priority. And Maven provides the department with the ability to track individuals as they come and go from different locations. So it's really interesting. You have these categories. They'll be used to basically analyze, what are targets, what are not targets. I'm really skeptical of artificial intelligence, computer deep learning, to be oh yeah, that's somebody you should eliminate compared to not.
Yeah, it's also the whole thing where artificial intelligence and machine learning has shown to have the inherent biases of the creators of it,
yeah,
and haven't solved that yet. And they're well, we should test it on other humans and see how it works.
That's interesting because there was a ProPublica article in 2016, and it was like a report, and they said that an algorithm used to predict the likelihood of recidivism, so like going back and doing, receding back into doing more crime and so forth among inmates, routinely exhibited racial bias. So it's interesting, Luci, like you're a computer programmer. Me, Mark, and other people we've talked to off the air about this, but is this kind of like the social and cultural aspects of code and machine learning and artificial intelligence? And I don't want to say specifically that artificial intelligence is learning culture or any of that, but I guess, is this like white code? Is that a possibility? Is this you know what I mean?
Yeah, there is definitely like there's a growing understanding of the fact that code is not inherently in of itself like a pure non-biased thing. It's not like a ones and zeros like people believe it is, because the programs that run and the way they run are based off of the design from the people who are writing the code. So based on their thinking, such as like the best example is with accessibility. So like is a website, for example, like is that still usable by someone who can't see? Can it be accessed through a screen reader and stuff like that? There's a growing emphasis on building for accessibility first and not as an afterthought. But most of development up until probably like this year has just been like, you just build it however you want to use it, and then that's good. And then when someone complains, then you go, oh, let me add that thing for you. And it's always like a second thought. And that's just like one of the best, like most forward examples of that. But yeah, like it goes deep into like machine learning, because that's still a person, a human, designing
Right.
through their background and experience the code that runs.
That's really fascinating. And maybe this is me being naive, but like when I hear artificial intelligence, I automatically go to like sci-fi movies where they already know and they're like kind of sentient, they have the free will, blah blah blah. But if you like kind of reel it in, and it's not that. It's really just like, I guess, incredibly complex parameters that are set, and the machine kind of like acts and thinks and does, and I'm using like human kind of terminology here, but it basically does within a certain parameter, and then we call that AI or artificial intelligence. So like when it comes down to is we're far away from Skynet. That's what I'm hoping, right? Like,
it's just sets of instructions, and it's unless you know that the instructions are coming from, which is impossible really, to coming from a completely unbiased, completely basically not coming from a human, because that's just going to be inherent in some way. Then it can't really be, seemingly it can't be this omniscient sort of, maybe not omniscient, maybe is the wrong word, but it can't get rid of bias in that way.
Interesting. Yeah, so that would be really interesting to kind of explore further, like kind of this, basically the social like norms, and basically the racist and sexist, ableist, and so forth elements within code parameters, whether it be explicitly injected in or created or not. Luci, you were talking about accessibility, so I think that's like really interesting.
Yeah, and it also brings to mind the incident that happened a few years ago with Microsoft's chatbot, where they let it run free on Twitter, and then like, I don't know, less than a day, they learned to be racist.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm just imagining like police drones, like given this like kind of like, I guess you could call it like white, like coding, and just be like, if not white, then arrest or like shoot or
Right.
like like terrible.
Yeah. I think what happened is like I'm trying to remember, they set it up there, and then people could interact with it, and then based off the interactions, it would determine like, oh, this is the way the world is.
Oh no! Shit, they're
And it's
making
like
Terminators Nazis.
That's like the whole thing with like robots today and AI. It's like they're like, sure, it did that by itself, but the person who like initially built it didn't think about what would happen past, it works technically.
Yeah, and that's another thing that kind of goes back to what I said. It is something created by fallible humans. Like there's just an oversight or just not thinking about something can totally create situations that are destructive or toxic in some way.
Yeah. And I think that's like one of the things with this Google stuff is that usually the people who are like making these calls and like doing the initial like overall design, like from the top down, they're removed from the realities everyday people have to face. So they're probably very far removed. Like I imagine if you're working in tech and you're the CEO or top person in tech, you're going to be not that close to the realities of what a drone, how it affects people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might be able to read about it, but I'm pretty sure that your emotional capacity is not where it should be to be working on a project like that.
Interesting, because that's kind of like one of the critiques that I've heard some people make about drones, in that, you can be, I don't know what, in Virginia or Pennsylvania or whatever, some fort, in the United States with an Xbox controller, literally using a drone in the Middle East and exterminating somebody. And you're so divorced physically from the location that it makes it so much easier to just, and plus it's a, Xbox controller. It's almost like video game like, right? It just makes it easier to push a button, and then you've literally
get that 360 headshot.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, you've literally ended the existence of somebody or lots of people. Yeah, it's terrible.
I just thought about the tagline, or the sub. I don't think it was a subtitle. The tagline for Halo, the first Halo, Combat Evolved.
Oh no. Oh, you know what we should do? We should totally do like a cover, like change the picture, but do like U.S. military and like. Oh.
There's a just a quick sideline. There's a show on Comedy Central called Corporate, which is great. We should watch it. I recommend it to all of you. There's a scene in there though where the guy has to make a presentation slide for his boss. He works like a tech company, and they're trying to get a deal with actually. I don't know why I'm just remembering this because it's actually perfectly aligned to what we're talking about. But they're trying to get a deal with the military. And so he's like, I could create the best presentation, and he makes one with like saying like, our technology will ensure that you have more deaths on your hands. Like it shows like bodies piling up, and like our bullets can kill 3 more people than. And it's like very on the nose, like what we're trying to do, and people love it and they respond really well to it.
Oh my God. And that ties in with this article by The Intercept, actually. It was March 2019, this year. Headline, Google hedges on promise to end controversial involvement in military drone contract, by Li Feng.
Mm-hmm.
And they said here, following months of protests from its employees, Google announced last summer that it would not renew its contract with the military on Project Maven, an initiative to use artificial intelligence to improve the targeting and surveillance capabilities of drones on the battlefield. It's interesting that they make it very clear it's just to improve the targeting and surveillance capabilities. Don't worry, it's not violence, it's just assistance, right? So they want to mitigate as much of the doing of violence as possible, right? It goes on further to say, in an email sent by this week by Kent Walker, which is Google's senior vice president for global affairs, hilarious, the Silicon Valley giant appeared to hedge on its commitment to fully cut ties with the drone initiative. They said in an email last June, we announced we would not be renewing our image recognition contract with the U.S. Department of Defense connected with Project Maven. He added, however, that an unnamed technology company will take over the work and use, quote, off-the-shelf Google Cloud Platform, basic compute service rather than cloud AI or other cloud services, to support some workloads. So it's like Google can pull out, but a Google-related company using Google products, they're going to fulfill that contract. Don't worry. We still got to make money. We lose a contract with the DoD. I mean, that's big profit.
I think it's important to note that it was pushback from the Google employees.
Yes.
That they're, I think they wrote a letter or something to the executives or whoever, and it was the pushback that at least got Google to, at the very least, get drop the contract with the DoD. However, as you said, they're still supporting it in some way.
Yeah, they found like a workaround, and they did it quietly.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting because the email didn't clarify like how Google be compensated and so forth, as well as the name of the new contractor, which I think is, as you said, very quiet, but it's also like very sketchy because, it's all about like mitigating damage, right, from the public limelight.
Or in this case, also just to maybe like appease your employees and be like, hey, we're doing something. All right.
There you go.
Are you going to...
Yeah.
You're not
like
going to complain anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
There's a frustrating thing about tech companies taking everyone else's data while limiting their own transparency within their own ranks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So some of the specifics for Project Maven was that the project uses machine learning to automatically label images, buildings, and other objects captured by cameras on drones, helping Air Force analysts identify unique targets, kind of like those different categories or whatever that we talked about earlier. And, this is really similar to the technology that police are using. It's basically, if I'm getting this right, isn't this just basically judgment based on aesthetic algorithms? Like the appearance of things, that's like it's an algorithm for that.
That's what it sounds like to me. Again, I feel like it's almost like at some point this stuff starts to get into like lawyer speak, where they're almost like making up words just to try and confuse you. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they're deciding to partner up with the military, and the military is like core thing. Like their whole thing is we kill people. That's our whole thing, and we do it well.
Yeah, the military is creating a need for the technology. Google can supply the technology, and in doing so, they quote unquote, like air quotes here, like innovate, and they make profit off of it. Like it's a dual interest of both of these parties, right? If the military can be efficient in killing and also have the need to keep killing, then Google will provide and profit, and then it works hand in hand.
Yeah, they're deliberately like getting involved in the profiteering of murder, basically. Like the military industrial complex thrives on its ability to always have conflicts.
Perpetual war, yeah.
Perpetual war, and they always, they're in good business. The government is always willing to give the military the most amount of money. So if you are hungry for money, then you will seek out working with the military at some point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like with Google and these people, it's setting like a really terrible precedent where now these tech companies that were supposed to be quote unquote not evil are becoming evil.
Talk about job security. You just get into military contracting,
Like they're doing fine. Why do they need this? Is the other thing.
Well, okay, so this is like the crux of it, right? So it says here that the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Board. So the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Board has described the race to adopt AI tech as akin to the race for, quote, nuclear weapons in the 1940s and with precision-guided weapons and stealth technology afterwards. So the comparison, there's a couple of things here to unpack. One, they're making comparison to the level of like power that atomic weapons had and the race to get it as soon as you can, because who's going to have it? The enemy's going to have it. And I think in our context, it's probably safe to say Russia and China, that's who we're racing against here, right?
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I've seen. It was like China's working on their own AI stuff. So
right. So they have to be ahead of the game, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly.
AI arms race.
Yeah, and two, like this is going to make killing more efficient, and then you're going to have arguments from that side saying like it's a deterrent, like you have to have military for a deterrent, and this just helps deter it more because it's more efficient in what? Mass killing or targeted killing.
Oh, you don't like these warheads that take out a whole city? Okay, let's just let's minimize it to. But still in a very imprecise way, potentially imprecise way, with just problems with the AI at this point. Like
they're fun bite warheads.
Oh, it's those warheads, the sour candies. Oh yes.
Oh, that's delicious. Delicious warfare.
My mouth always hurt after like.
I imagine it's a giant warhead that just comes down from the sky and it's just this massive warhead, and you just see it casting like a giant shadow over the city. But then it blows up into like a bunch of little tiny warheads, and then just like zips into the city, into like windows and stuff, and you just hear people go, like all over the place.
The flavor is rat poison.
My weakness.
So it's interesting that this is going on, and underneath the guise of all this is definitely when you play in the long game, you're talking about basically big countries, big superpowers flexing to see who has more military might, right?
Again,
and continued. Like it never stops.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
We want peace by murder. Let's keep doing that. This is for peace, damn it.
That's
always the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the justification. Is like either one, there's always going to be war, or two, like you want to have peace. Well, there's only one way to do it.
Everyone else is dead.
Weapons development.
Yeah, there's no. I forgot who said this. Maybe it was redacted tonight, but or maybe it was Colbert. They're talking about how like there's a department for like war or whatever, like Department of Defense, whatever. In the military, but there's no like Department of Peace because it's not really profitable. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Well, that's even the interesting thing about it being called the Department of Defense.
It's not Department of Offense, but it really is.
Yeah, because what are we? Seemingly, we don't have any actual threat of invasion.
It was just a misreading of Sun Tzu.
But we're constantly going outside of our own boundaries to fucking commit violence elsewhere.
The best defense is a good offense.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
it's just a misreading of Sun Tzu's Art of War. Exactly.
And everyone knows that war is art. I mean, when that battlefield is painted with blood, it is magical.
And when it dries, it becomes a darker red, so you get hues.
And then if you like pile the bodies up, you can get a nice texture going. And it really brings out the emotion.
Like I didn't need that. It didn't have any emotion inside it with the blood. I needed dead bodies piled, skulls for the skull throne, blood for the blood god, yada yada yada.
Blood for the blood. I need some dead body. I need some dead bodies over here, and I get some blood over here, some buckets of blood. Thank you.
That really pulls the ring together.
This is really coming together. See, I'm an artist. This is important. It's important. Don't say that art doesn't pay.
Oh. There's a really interesting thing, and we'll tie it in with the employees and all that. But I wanted to bring in this is still from that Intercept article that we're referring to. It said the petition urged Google to swear off quote warfare technology and cancel the contract, which it said quote puts Google's reputation at risks and stands in direct opposition to our core values. So I looked up the core values, and if you take it in the context of drone strikes, it's fucking hilarious. These core principles, there's 10 things we know to be true. This is from Google's website. So number one, and again, in the context of drone strikes, this is great. Number one, focus on the user and all else will follow.
In other words, target that guy.
Activate aesthetic execution algorithm protocols.
No. The user is the United States military, though.
Oh, just focus and all else will follow. Money, death.
Get that Skrilla.
Number two, it's best to do one thing really, really well. And
okay, now go to the targeting part.
Headshot.
Google is now amazing.
No-scope, straight to the dome.
Google is now amazing, and seeing the bad guys. So Department of Defense, like this is what we're doing. We do one thing really well, analyzing that footage for you. So what? You can kill more.
Target them.
Number three.
Get them. Sick them. Hide them. Kill them.
Number three. Fast is better than slow, and a swift judgment, jury, and execution, all in the form of drones. You'll love it. It's it'll be even better when it's on your domestic military, aka police force.
Hey, I want that guy dead, but I want it fast. He's not dying fast enough. Can we make it quicker?
Yeah.
Can I speed this up? Chop, Garcon.
As a millennial, I too don't like to do my jury duty. So, fuck it. Just put the jury, the executioner, the judge, everything into one machine with a gun.
It's more efficient that way.
Exactly.
That's all we care about.
More efficient, more productivity, more money.
Number 4, democracy on the web works. And I put, what the fuck? They have the monopoly on the internet. This is...
That's
what
true.
This isn't capital, or this is really fucking capitalist. This is a democracy. Like.
What is this called? There has to be a word for this kind of thing where you're like jumping in front of... You're jumping in front of the criticism by saying, like, look, we have democracy in our core... Like, it's literally written in our core values. We can't be a monopoly.
Isn't the whole thing, though, is that they're bringing democracy to these other, other places?
Oh, have us some democracy for your ass.
That's number 8, actually. We'll get there.
Okay.
Number 5, you don't need to be at your desk to need an answer. We can forward you your elimination results straight to your Google Assistant.
Enable notifications, and we'll tell you when that person is fucked up.
They put in their justification after this one is, not only does Android benefit consumers who have more choice and innovative new mobile experiences, but it opens up revenue opportunities for carriers, manufacturers, and developers.
Oh my god.
I present a dystopian future where people have like their Snapchats and notifications on, and similar to how they have like top 10 what the fuck moments in gaming for different games. There'll be like top 10 drone strikes
Oh no!
for today. People will like tune in and be like, "Oh, look at that one! That's a good play," and they'll watch it.
They'll like start something like hashtag gallbladder and or flying or something like that, and be like, quick, measure how far their gallbladder flew.
Oh, my God.
Oh, looks like Jerry won the bet.
Jesus
Oh.
But it's that specific point. It just lays out exactly like it's so
I know.
mask off almost. It's like bringing it's effective for in this case the military.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing profits to Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or
Boeing,
whoever,
everybody,
Boeing, like whoever's fucking manufacturing that shit. It's like they say it right there.
So I'm pretty sure that there's a second QAnon, like GAnon, and they're basically like subtly writing out like the doomsday drone plans that were all like, well, this is terrible, and the guy's like, yeah, but like I gotta like secretly write it in there, like 10 core principles. Maybe someone will find out. GAnon hashtag. Number 6. Oh God. You can make money without doing evil. And I just put, apparently not.
No. Then it's like, do they have a thing that says, how do we define evil?
Yeah, absolutely. So according to Google, like these are the evil things that they're like focusing on. And in the context of drones, it doesn't really apply, but it's still like as a side note, really interesting to see what, Google's like, hey, we're not evil and this is why. We don't allow ads to be displayed on our results page unless they are relevant where they are shown.
Whoa.
At the top, because that's where they always show up. They're like the first things. It's like, this is an ad.
So noble, so brave.
We believe that advertising can be effective without being flashy, and we don't accept pop-up advertising, unlike your porn sites.
Wow.
They didn't put that in, that porn site, but I wish.
Yes, they did.
Bing's
No.
better for
Quote
porn,
us on it.
apparently, from what I've heard.
And then, this is fucking great. And then, going on about the evil, they say, our users trust our objectivity and no short-term gain could ever justify breaching that trust.
Those are all lame. Those are all lame descriptions of evil.
What the fuck? Number 1, I don't trust your objectivity.
Objectivity?
Yeah, that's the part that I'm like...
Didn't we just talk about how the coding of and how AI can't really be objective if it's authored by a human being?
Hey, we are your users and we don't trust you. So how about that?
Guys,
you failed.
I Google search all my answers and I find the answers. That's what they mean by their objectivity. They always have the answers.
I mean, there are answers. Certainly, there are certainly answers. I don't know if they're right.
Pretty soon we'll be able to be like, say something like, "Hey Google, show me the top kills for the day."
Oh no! No, thanks your Taco Bell instant replay. Most extreme elimination.
Brought to you by Pepsi.
Number 7, there's always more information out there. And I put, yes, the racial bias bullshit your AI looks over.
Yep, that's
It's a big 10-4.
There's always more information out there. Beyond, doesn't say beyond our walls. Like for real, there's other platforms, guys. It's not just us.
Number 8, the need for information crosses all borders. Exactly. Drones flying into all these other countries. Exactly.
Passing out information.
Exactly.
Hey guys, did you know that there's more information out there? Well, here, I brought it to you.
Oh, this is great. They put, using our translation tools, people can discover content written on the other side of the world in languages they don't speak. With these tools and the help of volunteer translators, we have been able to greatly improve both the variety and quality of services we can offer in even the most far-flung corners of the globe. And I put, wow, way to talk about the Middle East, assholes.
Why is it far-flung? I don't know, that sounds derogatory when people say
Yeah.
that, far-flung.
Yeah. Like the middle, like you just imagine it's a dark corner and there's like, it's very America-centric, superpower-centric,
Yeah.
Western-centric, I guess. There you go.
I flung my shit all the way over there. That's where it landed. That's far-flung. That's some far-flung shit.
Like far-flung is for like haggis throwing, like far-flung, that's the only context where you should ever use that term. Caber tossing, there you go.
That's like, yeah, like in the Middle Ages, they would say like the furthest corners of the world. And then they were like, oh shit, the whole world is circle. Damn it. There's no corner. The ground doesn't hold. My life is a lie.
You've just disproved flat Earth theory. Number 9. You can be serious without a suit. And I said, yeah, military uniforms.
You can activate and use a drone all while in the comfort of your jockstrap.
When you're in an air-conditioned trailer, like, it doesn't really matter what you wear.
You don't have to put on pants to make a kill.
Oh. At the end of that one, they put, our atmosphere may be casual, but as new ideas emerge in a cafe line, at a team meeting, or at the gym, they are traded, tested, and put into practice with dizzying speed. And they may be the launch pad for a new project destined for worldwide use. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but the design for Project Maven, the AI, was only done in 6 months. So it's like they're covertly bragging about that.
Yeah.
We actually wrote the AI to kill brown people in the middle of a Starbucks, actually.
Well, there's like the number 3, fast is better than slow. So that's their whole thing.
Is Google talking about their sex life? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I imagine everyone that works for Google has to like take a sex seminar where they have to learn how to finish before their partner.
It's a race.
It's a race. I won. Good night.
Rolls over.
Good night, honey. Good night, honey. I love you.
Oh.
Smooch, smooch, smooch. Welcome to our loveless marriage. There's literally blood on our hands. Good night.
Alexa, set a reminder for tomorrow for Project Maven. I want to know how many kills there were.
There's with Google Home, you can set up like a thing so when you say good morning, you can have it start to tell you the news or whatever. And that's what will happen.
Oh.
Good morning, Google. It's like, oh, good morning, Joseph. There's been 30 kills since you last went to sleep. Would you like to know more? Yes.
And it immediately plays Proud to be an American right afterwards.
It also tells you how far the gallbladder flew to see if you won the bet.
Everything's the gallbladder. It's the gallbladder Olympics.
Number 10, great just isn't good enough.
I hate it.
I fucking hate it too.
I hate that.
Like,
So sick
great
of it.
isn't just good enough. You got to go full blown like lawful evil, chaotic. No, lawful evil. Yeah,
That's the
lawful
whole
evil.
thing. That's the upsetting part is we have more than enough if we just just calm down a little bit
No,
and then focus on how we can like help everyone else out.
no. What do
You
you?
know, guys, like if we just like,
That's
take
really
what we
selfish
have
of
and
you.
learn how to distribute it in a way
That's-
that affects everybody equally and with care and love, like that could be better than great.
So I saw a Reddit post today, and it was somebody tore a Bernie Sanders sticker in half, and then
Oh, I
left
saw
him a
that too.
note and was like, "Hey, you believe basically like you're a socialist, and I don't have a Bernie sticker, so we got to share." So that's basically what you're espousing right now. I know. So then it says
So
like
stupid.
Ernie Sanders, and I love it. The concluding portion of this 10 things we know to be true by Google is fucking great. It says, we try to anticipate needs not yet articulated by our global audience and meet them with products and services that set new standards. We're always looking for new places where we can make a difference. Ultimately, our constant dissatisfaction with the way things are becomes the driving force behind everything we do.
Whoa.
And I thought, dude, if ISIS had enough money, they could totally hire Google to counter the drones with drones.
Wow, constant dissatisfaction.
Just in that
What a bunch
context.
of horse shit.
Just in that context, it's just a fucking terrible way to come.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like we're dissatisfied, and so we're gonna take it upon ourselves to fix the. Oh my god, I can't even do it. I'm sorry. I just can't.
Hey, it's their constant dissatisfaction with the way things are
Oh,
becomes the driving force behind everything we do. You know, that sounds like really terrible from like a white privilege point of view too.
Yeah.
no, everything they do,
Well, that's
including
the whole
this.
thing about having
Not
cafes
just their
and-
fucking consumer products, but
Yeah.
this contract as well.
Exactly. Oh my god. Yeah. So taken even out of the drone context, this last line still applies to the drone context. Oh my god. We are dissatisfied with those people who aren't white in the Middle East. Let's develop some technology and take care of it. We did it in a cafe line, by the way. 6
I
months.
can fix that for you. Boom! Headshot. Got him, coach.
So reeling it back in, back from Google's core values. It's interesting because in that Intercept article, they talk about how the new technology for Project Maven has been reviewed and approved by an internal ethics review, and it makes me question why they'd have an internal one rather than an external one, because they could, basically control what's being approved and what's not approved. It's just it's interesting and scary to think that this. Google is going where demand is and exists and where profit can be made. And we will, as a podcast, watch the documentary on police technology for surveillance, the police state and surveillance state that we do, in fact, live in, that explores this further, called Do Not Resist. We'll watch this podcast for all y'all in the near future. But it's interesting to think about how technology is evolving in that way in order to control, observe, analyze, and essentially destroy. When it comes down to it, it's Mark, we were talking about this right before the show, but the state, which we kind of understand as a monopoly of force, it's the justification for not breaking, for aka doing the laws that are in place, grounded in the economic system we live in, capitalism. If you don't follow the laws, if you don't and the social norms, etc., you get repercussions, and they come in the form of violence. And violence isn't necessarily, physical violence. It
Right.
could be psychological,
Economic.
emotional, economic. Especially we see that in Venezuela, and it spans generational, that trauma. And it's interesting to think about how basically these drones are exerting their monopoly of force in other countries, which you really got to be swallowing a huge dose of ideology to really not stop and think wow, that's what we're doing over there. Because it's so easy to be they're terrorists. They threaten us. They threaten us Americans. They threaten America. Therefore, just push the button. right? Those are human beings. I'm not defending terrorists. I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying like there's a very powerful ideological element here at play where we don't question like this sort of violence, the monopoly that's going on, and maybe that violence is A, not justified, B, it's not morally right.
And to go back to the drones and the AI use with the drones, like how will software be able to tell who is and who is not a terrorist or an enemy combatant or what have you?
Absolutely. I'm assuming it's all probability too, the way they would pose it. At least I would hope so. If they're just like, yes, this is one of them, recommendation for extermination.
Because if their goal is, and I don't have, thought I read it somewhere, I don't have it in front of me, but if their goal is automation, that seems completely like an impossibility.
Absolutely.
Because you would definitely need some sort of human input then.
Absolutely.
Because I don't see any way that software could make that kind of call reliably. I
agree. It's different than, and I think some people might retort back with, "Oh, look at smart cars." It's not the same. It's definitely that's a whole other like issue, and the reason I say that is because like it's a judgment of like distance and space, and it's interaction with objects that are like moving, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's so much more different than a social context. That's what's so removed and divorced in so much of the conversation today. It really frustrates me. And that's the difference between like the whole identifying terrorist threats with drones and the smart car. If you want to like reply back, but look at the technology we have. We could totally do it. One, you're assuming a little too much. You're putting a little too much faith in science and technology. And two, like you're divorcing it from a social context. It's totally different.
I think this will tie into, I think we want to talk about in a future episode about some technology that Amazon is working on with, they're specifically doing facial recognition stuff.
Absolutely.
In like mass surveillance contexts.
This is the same company that was like, hey, if you give us a copy of your key, we'll just put your package inside your front door. You can trust us. Remember when they were doing that, the delivery thing?
Yeah.
Fuck no.
Don't trust them.
But if you have nothing to hide,
right?
If you're just a law-abiding citizen, what do you even worry about? It's a utopia, right? And I think then, then I think it begins to come like conflated with like what becomes conflated here then is like this. You start hearing like but it's my rights and blah 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 blah. I think there's a certain part in this where, yeah, you do have to kind of utilize your rights, otherwise you do lose them. Not to take like this extreme libertarian kind of, and I mean that in the American, not the classical sense, libertarian approach where it's like, these are my rights, whatever. But there's a certain like truth to that, and that if you don't use them, and also if you don't like guard them, that in particular, you're going to lose them. If we've seen from historical examples, what we can infer, it does seem to be that entities that have power are going to use whatever power and innovation of that power in order to acquire more and protect their power. They don't want to give that up. And I think that's...
I think you're so right too. Like that's so easy to forget is that if we don't use or exercise our rights, then then we'll lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to practice them. It's not just something that you just like have, and like by having it, everything's good. Like you have to actually engage.
And I think that admits the non-natural rights thing that I think a lot of like conservative, I think a lot of Americans in general, but especially some libertarians might be arguing like the whole like God-given right, natural right, like that kind of stuff. That kind of reveals that, because then it's like, wait, you can't lose them, right? Because it's like, but
the government gives you the right.
Society, like, yeah,
or that's what I mean.
Yeah, society wrote the rule. We wrote the rights.
There is no inherent.
Yeah.
No right is inherent, and it comes from unwritten societal agreement, basically, or a state of some sort. Otherwise, in written law.
Absolutely.
Like to think that anything is just inherent, like I'm human, therefore, I have these rights. It's like, no, this can be taken away easily.
And I think
I
that's
have rights, therefore I am.
No,
Yeah, the true American
I am,
argument.
therefore I have rights. It's kind of what that ideology is.
Yeah, when I teach, I bring up that conception of like natural rights or whatever. And, just a few 100 miles south to Mexico, they don't have those same, quote, natural God-given rights. And you see some students like kind of like begin to ponder like, oh shit, wow, that's totally like human language, human construction, social construction, right? Like, yeah, but I think we would get a reply on that side defending that notion though, and say like, but those people are preventing us from doing our natural rights, and it's like,
but if you can prevent it,
that doesn't mean it's natural rights. It just like, do you know what I mean? Like you're making an assumption on the existence of something that is natural, which is rights. You're not proving it. You would point to a document and say, but that's very like religious, like kind of practice. I think
I think that is kind of where a lot of this can come from, or does come from, is a sort of or where a lot of that idea kind of stems from is a more theological.
I think the delivery is similar for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
On that subject, and to talk about rights and this sort of creeping loss of privacy in a way.
Absolutely.
And just thinking about, at least, of what I know of, at least in the 20th century, the emergence of fascist governments in Germany or in Italy or wherever. It's that it is a like I said, a creeping,
absolutely
slow deteriorating of rights under in both those cases, at least, like the government.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think
I really do think that that's what we're seeing.
Yeah,
at least in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely.
It's headed that way.
Yeah, you're kind of like getting at like the idea that it's like the way this whole surveillance and all of this like invasion of privacy thing is like growing and growing and becoming like normalized. Like it's Are you guys kind of like suggesting like it's further,
or what's
you're saying, like deteriorating like the inherent quote unquote God-given rights rules that we all like kind of have, like we are, and our system is losing its strength, I guess.
And I think it desensitizes us to that because we have this technology in our pockets that tracks our location. We have Operation Stingray that the police use to triangulate you based on your coordinates of like geofences, right? You have all these things that we've accepted because they're like enjoyable consumerist items that become kind of a social need to some extent in our society that we live in, and we become desensitized to that. We begin to like greater and greater accept it. But to kind of tie back to what you were saying, Marks, about like fascism and the rise of it, I agree with some of the other public intellectuals that I think fascism is, and they've talked about this on Chapo. Matt talks about it, how fascism is an inherent kind of development, but it's always kind of inherent in capitalism because it's always a reaction to like the left, the growth of the left, right? The progressive and the more like, more left wing you go and the more prevalent it becomes, capitalism takes and uses like forms of fascism, but it is inherent in and of itself. Like capitalism and fascism are, I would argue, synonymous in many ways, but I think that, there's some differences, but really like when it comes down to it, like we are seeing that at play here. And now like we can debate if it's becoming more and more authoritarian. And I think it's easy for us as Americans to say like, well, it's not authoritarian just yet, but like if you, in any other country, like Brazil, for example, or whatever, authoritarianism is still alive and present and relevant. And, and this is maybe for another podcast episode, but to talk about what are the kind of systems of government that we would want to see, right? Not authoritarian, not hierarchical, legitimately democratic, not representative democracy. We don't want something where we elect one person who we hope votes always in our interest for X amount of years, such amount of time.
And how are they going to realistically vote for every single person that they represent?
Yeah, exactly. That
or in
questions
their interest.
that majority rules thing, where the minority is then disenfranchised, and so something with consensus, something with community, something more legitimate in the sense of democracy or democratization. Because I think we do make an assumption here that democracy is in its final form, right? What we
Right.
see today is the society
All the
we
time.
will have.
I mean, you can even
All
see
the
that
time.
with at least, you know, coming from America, coming from that perspective,
Yes.
of even just the idea of capitalism as an economic system it is the final economic system. It is how things are supposed to be.
Yes.
And that's entirely born out of just really
Mhm.
coming out of the Cold War.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because
Like an event happens, and then, you know, in this case, someone was a quote unquote winner.
Yeah.
And then that just needs to keep going because that's what seemingly
ideologically.
ideologically, is what quote unquote won.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it's entirely contextual, it's entirely historical.
Absolutely. Right, and that's the thing, is that makes an assumption that like that's it. So Francis Fukuyama, the author who wrote The End of History, that's his argument that basically social democracy, basically what we have today, maybe Sweden, that's the final stage of like human politics and society and all that. He later on said, okay, no, wait, that's not true. But people still hold on to that idea, and you're right, it's definitely derived from the Cold War. I would actually argue that when it comes to the Cold War, it was American and Soviet state capitalism.
Yeah.
And it was like, which flavor do you want? You want red or do you want blue, right? And then so the blue one won, and then so now like, therefore, this is the winner. And then it gets hyper intensified via neoliberalism, Martin Friedman and the Chicago schoolboys. What I mean by that is just like, let's just privatize everything. Let's not make anything public, you know, and then free market capitalism reigns, and it's global. The markets have spread to the far-flung corners of the earth. And now it's an amazing because, you know, we're Americans. We're living in this first world country, and we have all this technology. We have all these luxuries. We have so much access to jobs and money and education, blah, blah, blah. Why would you complain? But little do we know, in like, you know, hundreds of miles away, if not thousands, there are people who are working for cents a day in order to, you know, mine and rape the earth of the resources so that we can make the luxuries and goods that we have. But it's so like we're so divorced by them, even though there's this facade that we're so connected by social media and all the little things, you know, like fucking Facebook and Twitter and all that, that it's like, you don't even like teach shit in school. Like, you know, you gotta like go out there and look for it. But then when you go on the internet and look for it, you have like algorithms from YouTube that is just like alt-right, like fucking Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Benny Boy bullshit. And it's like, this is a fucking shitty ass. We live in a dystopia, but become so desensitized to it that we imagine it as normal.
I'm always thinking about, like, when you see dystopian like movies and things like that, like everything is so stylized that it's so easy to go like, that's the bad guy, that's the bad
Yeah.
thing. But
Right.
like, and like it takes, like, even now, like it still takes me some mental work to recognize
Yes.
that in the day-to-day as it is now, because it doesn't look anything as dystopian, you know, as you think it should look. Like, you think like, oh, I know how the bad guy is gonna look when they show up, but they'll just look like you. That's the shitty part.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say though that to clarify, it is kind of easy to point out Nazis because they have like that one haircut, the like comb over, slick haircut, and they're wearing a business
Yeah.
suit, like, you know.
They're the
Yeah, there you go.
ultimate baddie of recent history, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, Nazis.
Oh yes. No.
Oh, god damn it. Yeah, Kyle Kinane had this great bit where he talks about how it's like, you know, for all the bad from the KKK, and let me say, they are bad. Their laundry game is very on point. Not a single stain in any of their photos. They're out there in the woods and just flawless white clothes.
Oh my god.
I wanna
Yeah.
and now a good time. I wanna put in the Stephen Hawking quote. If we can do that.
Oh yeah, that's relevant here.
So Stephen Hawking, he had a quote where he said, and I'll just read this verbatim. He said, unless we learn how to prepare for and avoid the potential risks, AI could be the worst event in the history of our civilization. It brings danger, like powerful autonomous weapons, or new ways for the few to oppress the many. It could bring great disruption. It could bring great disruption to our economy.
If everyone's dead, who's gonna buy the stuff?
Shit.
I need more customers.
That's interesting.
This is a call to awareness, folks.
A PSA from PST.
PSA from PST. That's what we're trying to do. We're still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Absolutely.
The first one was or the first episode was a little bit more restrained. Second one, we just gotta let the undo our hair or whatever, let it flow, and then we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
I think as we get more feedback, and maybe this will be included in the actual episode, but as we get more feedback, and if people please give feedback, please, we'll know sort of where our strengths are too.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot of stuff to offer.
We have a lot of strength.
And we have strength.
Strength 18.
I have +3 strength.
Oh, damn it. To tie it back in with Stephen Hawking, I think it's something interesting for our listeners and ourselves to think about. This is kind of talking about Andrew Feenberg. I believe that's the correct name. And he's basically a philosopher of technology. And he's talking about how the people who control the technology will create kind of the purposes and the end goals of technology. And we don't have technology that's serving our interest. And I mean us, like the working class, the people, not the elites, right? The 99%, if you want to use that kind of terminology here. And I think this kind of ties in really well with Luci, what you were talking about, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking also went on to talk about how if machines produced everything we need, the outcome will depend on how things are distributed. Everyone can enjoy a life of luxurious leisure if the machine-produced wealth is shared, or most people can end up miserably poor if the machine owners successfully lobby against wealth redistribution. So far, the trend seems to be toward the second option, with technology driving ever-increasing inequality. And this was said in 2015, and Huffington Post, quoting from Stephen Hawking, says we should really be scared of capitalism, not robots.
Damn.
Rest in power, Stephen Hawking's. Bring on fully automated luxury gay space anarcho-communism.
Damn, son.
So I think that's something to think about. Like, drones are being created for what? For what purpose? Obviously, to exterminate those who threaten the system, threaten the power.
Or at the very least, just surveilling.
Yeah. Which is, again, to maintain power and reinforce it.
Yeah. Or possibly, a certain few 3 people who have a podcast.
Whoa!
Keep talking
Don't
shit
tell the
about
secrets.
this.
We're the ones with the drones.
It'll be like the Ramones, where one by one of us will be taken.
No! Well, on that note, I'll go out
Goodbye
in style.
forever. Until next time.
We will see you all next time. Again, if you want to reach out to us, email us at publicspacetravel@gmail.com. Our voicemail you can leave is 208-502-1406. I am Lazarus. You can follow me on Twitter at PSTLazarus. You can follow Luci at PSTLuci. That's Luci, Luci. And Mark's at PST in the Shadows.
We also have a podcast-specific Twitter. I forgot what it was.
Oh,
Public Space Pod. That's what it was.
Public Space Pod. That's right. At Public Space Pod is our PST Twitter.
Oh, I wanted to throw in. I had a new maybe segment at the end where we just have little plugs, things where we can be like, oh, this is something cool. That
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
watch.
good. That's good.
Like watching or reading that's not necessarily politically based, but just something to enjoy.
I like that.
So I want to throw in the show that I mentioned to you guys earlier. The show Insecure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a show that has helped me to, for lack of a better word, appreciate Black culture.
Yes. Yes.
In America. It's just from the point of view of it's just people living in LA.
Mm-hmm.
but it's from the viewpoint of just an all-black cast, pretty much.
Oh, awesome.
And there's a lot of social critique and things along with it too, but it's also just generally just a hilarious show with great acting and great writing. Shout out to Issa Rae for wonderful work there.
Awesome.
And that's my little plug.
Nice. Yeah, and I've been watching the Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland, and also the R. Kelly one, Surviving R. Kelly. And I just have to say, two terrible people. And really, we need to not play these artists' music on the radio anymore and enable them and support them in essentially giving them money and therefore power. It's fucking terrible. It's actually...
Get them out.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Just put on the spot. I don't really have anything, but I like this idea, and I will definitely have something next time.
All right, so study hard, stay smart. We are Public Space Travel!
Public space travel.
Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine.
Public space travel.